current status is that just recently Premier Ford said that school is not going to resume on April 6th. So, it's just, so everything is pretty well shifting, almost daily, but he has said that. So this kind of 2-week pause is now going to go in past April 6th. And I think that's really important. So consequently, as a school board, what we have been doing is now planning and, to how we're going to work with our students and our staffs going forward in a very different kind of learning environment. So I think, yeah, so I call it learning and working environment, because I think there's going to be we're all going to be doing lots of learning together and also working together to try to do the best for our students. So I think that's what's really important. And I think that's what families at this point are really going, what is it going to look like forward? And although we can't provide, say, definite things, we are quite aware, like the provinces, is that, and especially in rural areas, is that learning going forward, during this basically very difficult time is going to be very different, because rural, provides different challenges that they might not have in an urban setting. So I think that that's what's really important here. So we're working on basically at this point, Bluewater, on, basically looking at ways to ensure that students have the ability to learn, and that we're working very closely with, of course, the Ministry of Education and other Ontario public school boards in terms of what that's going to look like. So for one thing, I think many parents and students know that the government recently launched an online learning platform, and that was supposed to really be for the next 2 weeks. For, something that students and parents can access to ensure that students are continually learning. So that's kind of where we're at right now, but our board is really looking at what kinds of resources we're going to provide locally for our students, which create, very much different kinds of problems. So I think that that's what's really important. That's what our staff is working with our schools in our local area right now. So there's differences. So one is, of course, whether families or students have access to the internet, because we have many parts of our board that actually don't have access. So we're going to have to ensure that there's equity for those students and families. And this is what we're hearing. These are the kinds of messages we're actually getting from families right now, which is actually really helpful. Okay, so just say you're in a zone in Grey Bruce, for example, that you don't have access, but you've bought, additional help so that you can have access in those dead zones, but that's really expensive. So there's a whole part about that is that it's costly for families. And as you know, right now, the situation going on right across the province or right across Canada is that so many people are losing their jobs. So it really does become a monetary situation. And so that's the kind of information we're providing to the ministry. We're going to have to make sure that not only kids have access, but it's equitable. I think the other things that we're really looking at is that maybe if they don't have any access, how do we get learning resources to students that might actually be paper copies, So so for those learners, so, there's been talks, and I'm saying just talks, what can school buses provide, because they know where these students are, is providing learning, at basically the farm gate. I think that's a way. But then once again, as our staff, is how do they get that information to the farm gate? So, the whole thing is that piece. So many of our staff don't necessarily, live and work in the community that a school is. So for example, we might have someone who works at Huron Heights but lives in Port Elgin. I'm just saying those are kinds of logistics. that we're really looking at. So are we going to require that teacher or not? I mean, we're not, but how do we get the information to that student from that source? Because it's really important that our educators do have local connections with our students. They know their learners and the students in their class. And so I think that's really important. So there's some suggestions have been to create a hub, an open hub around schools. But then that also requires, and if you're not in walking distances, can you access that? So those are the questions, and we're trying to make sure that there's equity for all our learners, and also ensuring, that they're in a safe environment. The other thing is at home might look very different in various kinds of homes. So, can parents, right? Not all parents are going to be able to help their students, and depending on the level. They might not necessarily be able to access online information easily. I'm just saying these are the kinds of things that we're looking at, that we're trying to ramp up in the next 2 weeks. And it's quite phenomenal because we have heard from parents, we're hearing from our staff, that, okay, these are the things we think we can do. These are the things we need to think about. Is work dropped off at the school, then how do you then arrange that? So I think the community is really supportive. I think that parents and students can be anxious, but they just want to know what it may look like going forward. All the directors of education in the province are having online meetings with the Minister of Education twice a week. Okay, so that's going on. Last week, we had all the trustee chairs of each board had a meeting online with the Minister of Education, and we've asked that happen also on a weekly basis. We found it was really helpful for the areas that we represent across the province. So one of them is the Ontario Helping Students Learn from the Safety of Their Own Home. So you saw that the minister made a big announcement if they were to put that, plug that into their internet provider. But also at our board, we have a screen, if you go to our homepage, we have links to all, to that portal. And also we have been using, we have school messenger. So we've been sending messages out to say students and their homes. We also have, the Bluewater Board also has a Facebook page with up-to-date information, and also we're on Twitter. So we're trying to, meet people where they're at or where they can be. So those are the online pieces, but they can also basically phone the school board. I think we're trying to plan for everything. How's that? It's that idea about being really hopeful that eventually things will go back where kids go back in school, or even what that may look like going forward. But I think some of the things that we want to reassure, and one of them is our grade 12 students, that we're assuring that their graduation plans and going forward are not going to be jeopardized during this very difficult time. And I think for them that's really important, that they know that they've made plans. Maybe they made plans to, start a trade, or they maybe have started plans to go to college or university, and nothing that is happening is going to derail that. So I think, that's important, that parents need to know that, and that students need to know that. And I think that the other thing is that we've recognized this is a really stressful time for families and our students. It really is, and we really recognize that. So what we're trying to do in going forward is trying to reduce that stress in families. So we do recognize that not all families are set up the same and are going to have the same resources. And so we're going to try to accommodate all those different learning situations, and in providing education in a safe learning environment. Yeah, I think that if they have some really helpful ideas, because they also know their situations, right? Is to be, is whether writing myself, the chair of the board, which is, of course, you can go right on our webpage, and I'm quite accessible, and letting us know right? Because those are the kinds of things that I'm going to be able to bring forward to the Minister of Education. And that actually happened last week. I had some concerns that some families had presented to me. So I let Minister Lecce know that, and he's really appreciative of that because we know our families and our communities best.